Good evening, everyone. Such a pleasure having all the parents, audiences, friends, and wishers on this session in the evening today. I'm quite glad to welcome you all on behalf of Kidzonia International Preschools and Faith Foundation Global School Devas. I'm quite excited and elated to have such an esteemed panel of speakers with us this evening who are, I think, each one of them in their own capacity, bring in a great amount of experience and expertise to guide us and all our parents on a lot of questions, I think, which we have towards our kids, towards our parenting needs. And I believe since the moment we launched or announced this seminar, we were flooded with a huge number of questions, each one of them directed to maybe one of our esteemed speakers who will probably be able to help us with the answers to what the parents are looking for. Of course, in today's time, with the generation X, Y, Z that we've crossed over the last couple of years, and of course, the pandemic has pushed us into a never seen before technology era. The kids are way ahead of what they were probably in last two generations, and today is a time where we, as parents, have to deal with a completely different set of questions, a completely different set of scenarios to be held, at home as parents whenever we're dealing with whether they are teenagers, whether they are young kids, just born ones, or any age group. I think parenting at every stage is a big challenge, and each one of us is having our own set of questions, set of anxieties, set of things where we are seeking for some answers. So here is an opportunity for us to engage with the experts right here on our screen, who will probably be able to throw some light on the list of questions that we've been, kind of asked or shared with over the last couple of weeks since we've been promoting this. Well, before I start, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce our esteemed panelists here. I have with us Ms. Kiran Tewatia, who's basically a child behavioral psychologist, a parenting counselor, and founder of 18 Petals. Ms. Kiran is a child behavioral psychologist, a founder of 18 Petals. She's worked in child behavioral and care for almost many years across age groups, right from toddlers to children to teenagers to parents across institutions, whether it was daycares or preschools or even a pediatric clinic. She specializes in age appropriate development of children in areas like social, emotional, and conflict management. Though in person as well as online consulting, she supports many families with children-based and family-based interaction as per the needs. Thank you so much, Ms. Kiran, for joining us. We welcome you for the session.
Thank you so much, Sudhir. It's a pleasure to be here and to be connecting with everyone.
We look forward to some very insightful ideas from yours. Yeah, so to begin with, I think what I'd like to do here is to give a quick brief of and the objective of why are we actually conducting this session. So I think we've had our admissions on for almost about 3.5 years in the physical schools back in the 3.5 months. We started after the government permitted the schools to operate physically. That's the time a huge number of parents started pouring into, I think, every school across the nation. And, that's the time I think we started coming across these questions. We started coming across these interaction with parents. Meeting children at the time of admission is a very common thing for us. But I think meeting them after 2 years this time was a very, very different experience. A child who would typically be very, bubbly and chirpy and very outcoming, and when they see some play area, etc., they are in an extremely high level of energy mode. But that was not the case, very surprisingly, this time. The behaviors pattern of the children have changed. Their ability to mingle up with children and parent has changed. With their friends. In fact, we've had scenarios where kids have been attending online classes with some 20, 30 kids on the screen whom they've been seeing every day, morning in their sessions, and their teachers also. But when they come and meet them physically, they're scared of them. They're not able to recognize, they're not able to meet or maybe share the same camaraderie that they would typically do in an online space. And that is the reason, these are a lot of issues which parents have highlighted beyond the academic things, which we are obviously trying to address. But I thought this is something where we needed some sort of guidance from the experts, and hence the panel. So I think I'll first go to Ms. Kiran and Ms. Shachi. I think one of the most important experiences that adults can provide for their children is to talk and listen to them. Yeah, so I think from a parent's perspective, in the early ages, that is the most important aspect of parenting, because it is through these effective communication only that the children and adult can develop certain relationships, And that is something which helps children to learn about themselves and maybe the world around them. However, this is the communication part with children that requires various styles and behavioral aspects, especially in these times where these are not normal things to happen. So I think I'll let any one of you to start and give us some perspective. What could be the strategies? What could be the right methodologies for the parents to, initiate these conversations and try and make things normal for the children, and make them a little more forthcoming in their conversations.
Right. Could I take that first?
Any of you, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderfully, the way Sudhir you have put it across, that the same children, when they will see the photographs of their peers, and when they will see the videos of their teachers, and they're all interactive, but the moment they see them in person, the experience is so different. When it is in the 3D, the experience is so different. It's like the Santa, which is that reminded me of the Santa. When the child sees the photographs, it sounds so cute, but the moment the child sees, especially young children, they see a big Santa, they really get scared of it. So having said that, I think communication, a lot of times, Sudhir, and I also want to share with the parents that we put a lot of focus on the verbal way of communication. In fact, I get children who are, especially during the lockdown period, and because they are spending so much of time, more and more time with adults than their own peers, their vocabulary becomes good, but their way of thinking is like, it has been adultized to a great extent. They are speaking so many words which they wouldn't even understand the emotional part of it. So it is important for the parents to understand that communication is as much non-verbal, communication is as much visual. How calm your tone is, how your body language is, auditory, how is your tone, and the physical aspect. That is, how much is the touch? What is the proximity of your when you're communicating with the child? So please do not, especially young children who are so driven by visual aspect more than the auditory, please always focus. If I have to share this a few some tips on the strategies how to connect with your child, visual aspect, how, in fact, if you have to, I always tell the parents, if you have to do a check, just turn around when you're giving instruction to your child and check yourself in the mirror. How is it coming out? That will give a wonderful example to you that how you are coming across to the child. So it's focus on visual, focus on auditory, focus on your physical touch of the child. Another thing about communication is that a lot of time when children suddenly change their behavior, or you notice that the child has got clingy to you, so understand that, take those moments to connect with the child in proactively saying. A lot of times what happens is that we are so focused on the why part, and the child finds it difficult to explain that why are you so sad right now, why are you not talking, why you are not telling me about the school. It is good where you are talking in a leading manner, that how was your day, how, questions which are how, which are what, where, who. These questions are much better, they are more directional than why kind of questions. Why, especially for young children, what the beauty about that is, whatever why they will click upon first, they are bound to use the same lines again. For example, if one child hit another child, the chances are high that the next time when you say that, oh, so how is your friend doing, the child may again say that, yes, the child hit me, even though it might have happened 3 or 4 days back or a week back. So please focus more on what happened, how was your day, then what did you do. Even if the child comes and tells you about any of the social conflicts, it is important to focus on how did the child handle it, as compared to only focusing on the external part of it. That is going to develop the child's self-efficacy and the confidence of the child. So I really hope this small, little gist about the tips, the non-verbal aspect of it, the physical aspect of it. Sometimes pauses are as important. Sometimes being just physically there with the child are as important, especially if it's older children. If it is 11 or 12-year-old child, the child may say, just shut up, I just don't want to talk to you. But if you are just there in the same room, okay, all right, I see that you are not having a great day right now, but you know what? I just want to ensure that you know that I'm right there with you. So just being there with the child can be equally important. That can be a big communication as well. And the last thing is, no matter what the child says, please do not get read between your ears, or between, do not get embarrassed or shame with that. In today's time, the child has a lot of access to technology, has a lot of access to the topics which were not there in the olden time. A lot of data is not curated well. In the previous time, the exposure that the child had was preschool, their parents, their peers, which was pretty much curated. You could figure it out what information they are getting. But in today's time, they are getting a lot of information which they cannot make sense of. So if the child comes and asks you any word, ask the child the context. Where did you hear it? How did you come to know about it? Wow, that's an interesting question. And see how in an age appropriate manner you can handle that. So I really hope this helps the audience here. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Kiran. I think that was truly insightful. There are a lot of times when, as parents, we just want kids to listen. But I think the very, very critical point that you highlighted here is that we need to listen to them more than we want them to listen to us. And when we want them to listen to us, I think, or there are a lot of times where the observation that a parent makes is the most critical aspect of communication. I think go back to Ms. Kiran. Ms. Kiran, I think we've touched upon multiple aspects of a child's growth, whether it is the eye care, whether it is the food care, or the nutritional aspect of it. How much do you think does these kind of habits or the pampering that is being done by the parents, in order to make sure that the child is feeling comfortable and all, affect the child psychologically? What are the long-term repercussions on a child, which we as parents don't even realize, when we are making these mistakes in the early years?
Okay. So the one thing which I would like to build upon when Parivala ma'am was sharing about the children coming back, because I am getting a lot of cases, especially in the preschool, of how difficult the child is finding to settle down in the school. It's just my request. I just take this platform that I see sometimes some of the preschools, they start giving feedback to the parents within 2 days of how tough the child is finding it. So we have to understand that of course it's going to be tough for the children. They are so used to seeing their both the parents right at home, whether even if they are working professionals, there's a certain routine that they have set in. So of course that it is going to be tough. So we have to at least give them 2 to 3 weeks of time for the routine to set in. We'll have to postpone the academics part a little bit, so that we are making them comfortable in the new routine first before we start getting into the judging and evaluation. And that's what I want to share with the parents here as well, that your child can get extra clingy. Your child can start regressing on the milestones that the child has already achieved. Some children can start peeing in the bed. Some children can, on first day or second day, they can be very comfortable in the school. But right from the third day and the fourth day, when the novelty goes off, the child may start getting highly cranky. So please give your child 2 to 3 weeks of time to settle down in the new routine. When you go, do not be over, too many hugs, and just, say, show your confidence that yes, the child can handle it. When you go to fetch the child, don't ask the child or the teacher in front of the child how many times the child cried or how tough the time child had. Just go confidently, see the braveness in your child, instead of feeling sorry for your child. In fact, Sudhir, I get parents who feel sorry for the child, that the child has to go through that. So I really hope parents and the teachers are helping the children better, especially the younger one, the preschoolers one. Now coming back to your question, see, uh, I do understand, and I see the analysts and a lot of people talking about, um, somehow there is a effect, the Pollyanna effect, where whatever we recollect from the past, it always seems so rosy. It seems that everything that our parents did, whether it is in terms of hitting us, whether it is in terms of sibling conflicts, whether it is in terms of, we are going and we are getting bullied, or the teachers are also adopting very corporal way of punishment, they're all okay. So whatever happened, we have to live with today's time. We have to understand today in the families there are one child, there is two children. There are less number of children. I have so many parents who are single child. There are more adults. We also have to understand that the academic and the structural way of bringing up children is getting more and more in younger age. Sometimes parents are even putting a 1.5-year-old child into some kind of structure, and the parents come to me and say that, my child just does not sit. The child does not have a sitting tolerance. We have to understand that the first 6 years of the life of the child are for movement. It is for play. The child learns through play. The child is not wasting time when the child is playing. The child has to solve the problems around his or her, around the surroundings. That this toy rolled over from my hand, how do I go and pick up? How do I climb on the slide? How do I go and connect with the other person, other friend, 3-year-old who just took the toy away from my hand? There's so many social, emotional, cognitive problem solving that the child has to do, and more platform you give which is social in nature, where there are peers for the child, lesser micromanagement which the parents are doing, it is much better. In fact, sometimes I notice that the parents truly start believing, if I don't teach the child, I'm talking about preschooler at this point of time, if I don't teach my child will not learn. I always suggest that give a platform to the child where it is stimulating, give different experience to the child, be comfortable to take your child to the mall, be comfortable to take your child to the banks, to the shopping, everywhere where you go, right? And be comfortable, like this eating thing also that we talked about. It is one more thing that I want to add is that the child, there is a hormone which gets triggered from our gut to the brain, which gives a sense of satiation, which tells I'm full now. When the child is on the screen, the child does not get that sense of fulfillment. It is very easy to get into parental bashing, but we also have to understand why we are getting regimented in today's time, because the parent's life is also highly regimented. The parent has to go for a meeting at 9 o'clock. The child has to go to a preschool at 10 o'clock. The father has to go somewhere. So even if the child does not eat at 10 o'clock, who is there to again feed the child is 10:30 and 11? You have to see the practicality problems around here as well. So having said that, being kind to the child, giving the options to the child for the eating, and letting the child process the no's that you are saying. Let the child process it. It is not important. Sometimes, Sudhir, I notice that as a parent, we take an onus that we have to convert the no of the child into yes. It is very child appropriate for a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old to make no's as their favorite word, not because there is something really magical about it, but because they see in the adult world, they learn by observational learning. They see in the adult world that how the no comes with a certain posturing, how the no comes with a certain tone, with a certain drama, and no, of course, becomes a favorite word for the child. So if the child says a no, please do not take it on the face value the way an adult will tell you a no. Go beyond the low, no. Scratch it a bit. So if the child says, no, I don't want to eat it, it is truly give a room to the child to process it and say, and show your acceptance. I do see that you're finding it tough to do this, finish this homework at this time. Show some empathy to the child, even if you have to make the child do the work. Do not just get into the reaction part of it, that the child said a no, now it's going to be a big thing. Observe yourself by the child's no, how you are getting triggered. We always have to remind ourselves that it is not about the parent. It is about the child who needs to learn through observation, through repetition. The child, 4-year-old child, will go at least 3 times, turn on the same switch again, and again you will go and you say, sorry, we cannot touch the electric switches. If you wish, you can play with the ball. You pluck the child and you take the child to the other room. And the child may again do it. So please tell yourself that the repetition is how the child learns. If you have to derive an analogy, look at how academics work. The child repeats the cat so many times that it actually gets ingrained in the child. Same thing child is going to do in behavior as well, right? There is one more thing, Sudhir, which we talked about in terms, especially in today's time, it is very relevant. The child is seeing how the parent is communicating with other neighbors, is communicating with friends, is communicating with the child's peers. But the child is not seeing how the parent is communicating in the mobile. It is especially important for children between 8 to 12 years of age. They do not know the rules of social media and they do not know the rules of how communication happens there. As a parent, if we just give a mobile to the child without the rules, because there was no modeling which happened, as a parent, we were doing it in silos. The child was not watching. So the lot of time children 8 to 12, especially years, find it difficult. They suddenly start getting into Instagram reels. They suddenly start going to YouTube. So how to have device discipline? We have to live in today's time. We can't use the same strategies which was there before. If 14-year-old child says, I need a privacy with my peer in the room, fair enough, it is privacy. But if a 14-year-old child says, I need a privacy with my phone when I'm on the internet, you really have to do digital sensitization and education. So let's live with today's time and find solutions accordingly. I really hope it helps the parents.
Indeed, it does. I'm sure with all four of you and five of you on the panel, we have a million more ideas to share and a lot more to probably guide people on. And I'm not really sure if there's anybody who's not, you're not wanting to continue further. But I think we have a paucity of time. I'm really glad to have you all here. Thank you so much for spending your time. We'd love to have you back to the school sometime individually, interacting with our kids and our parents to, uh, give a little more detailed. I'm sure I'll request Pooja to put me in touch with all of you next time when I can actually have you physically in the school, interact with our parents, and I'm sure there is a whole list of questions which have come down on the webinar itself, which we'll try and post you and of course share the insights with the parents. Thank you so much once again for being with us. Truly an enjoyable session and really, really insightful. I hope it's been as insightful for all our audiences and parents. Um, and I guess I'll pick up a line from what Ms. Kiran has truly just shared, which is very, very apt and relevant for all of us. It's about the child. It's really not about us. It has to be the child, which is to be there at the center of all we do, all we think, and we are doing as a parent. I'm sure we all want to do the best for our kids, but at the same time, we have to be very careful about that thin line which is always drawn between pampering and parenting. So I guess that's the closing remark that I have from us.